Hello, welcome to the Froggy Five. I'm your host, Jim Freilich, founder and managing partner of Froggy Companies. And today I'm privileged to be joined by Jason Yarusi. Jason is a private fund manager overseeing a $285 million portfolio for his company, Yarusi Holdings. And since 2017, they've acquired over 2,700 units and counting. Jason wakes up at 4:32 a.m. every day, which is something I'm going to want to circle back and talk to him about. And he's an ultra runner, fitness enthusiast. He hosts Multifamily Live Podcast, Figure Multifamily Mastermind, which I'm very interested in. And he is a happy spouse and father of three. So, Jason, thank you for taking the time out of your day to join me.
Yeah, it's great to be here, Jim. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so we'll start at the beginning. Jason, tell me how you came to be, and then share anything you might have had to persevere, overcome on your journey to be where you are today.
Well, we can go in a lot of directions with that. I'll go back is that, I went to college after, some of my formative years had some losses where a couple of friends had passed away and a girlfriend was killed in a car accident. So I went very unmotivated to college. I was a very shy kid and just wasn't really good with direction when I got into college. So I ended up picking a major because I had a girlfriend at the time who mom basically said, "Hey, you're good with numbers. Why don't you do business?" And that was kind of my direction of picking things. So left college with a finance degree and had no motivation to go into the finance space. So I moved into New York City and did the next logical thing. I became a bartender. So I started working in bars and restaurants and doing all these things that I really just didn't enjoy. And did that for a couple of years where I was just, angry at the world, wasn't happy with the position I was in. And one night riding home on my bike late at night, just mad at the universe for everything that was happening, I got hit by a car, thrown in the air, and basically came to, got up, had some broken bones, ended up getting some pins in my wrist, the thing in my shoulder, stitches in my face, and pulled out of the road and go to the hospital. And the next day, all I could think about was like, man, I have to get back to work because I need to make rent, right? And so I had this crazy moment of pause, like, okay, that is literally a ridiculous thought. You just kept complaining about where you are, the position you're in, all the things around you. And now all you can think about is getting back to the life that you just came to after getting hit by a car that you don't want to be at. So I'm not going to say it changed overnight, but I started, thinking and being more self-aware of how I was showing up. I started to make small changes, get up at a more routine time, stop, being out late, stop drinking after, bartending jobs. And lo and behold, things started to change in a positive manner. So opened up a bar, I opened up a brewery at a time, sold the brewery. And then in 2010 and 2011, I moved out to New Jersey to help my dad with his construction business. At that time, Hurricane Sandy had happened. That decimated the East Coast, and my dad had a very small construction company that he would lift and move houses. And so very unique business where it was not something that is like every day that people are lifting houses. It would just, a couple projects a month he would do, we'd do like 12 projects, 13 projects a year. And from that, his business overnight with this hurricane went to those 12 projects a year to hundreds of calls a day. It was just insane. So my little brother was working for me. My wife now, who was my girlfriend at the time, Peely, and myself, we moved out to New Jersey and helped Dad just take on the onslaught of business. And that was a good step in a good direction. We ended up at some part, we were doing a couple hundred jobs a year at that point. So we went from 12 to about like 250, 300 jobs a year. And through that course, I kept asking, right, like, how am I going to get control of my life? Because here I am working in the bar. It's like, you serve a beer, you get a tip. Here I am in this very unique niche construction business where you have to be very active, right? You can't pull myself out because of just the complexity of it and the risk of it. And I kept asking, like, what else can we do? Came upon, of course, the world of real estate. And real estate within its own is a very unique thing, right? Because you can do a million different things in real estate and win. However, myself, we went into the first thing that came upon is that Peely went and got a real estate license while pregnant. And we started finding homes and flipping homes. And we were doing these very involved, intrinsic flips, like very, 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 very detailed, delicate flips, like high intense, like very CapEx focused construction, like not just like paint carpet. And what I found is that I'm so busy with construction, and now I'm even more busy because I have all these activities going on. So that led me to kept asking that question, like, what else can we do out there? And we came upon someone who was investing out of state, buying rentals. And really that was someone who just had the freedom of time because they had put together a process. And we said, interesting. So we started buying rentals out of state, two units, 3 units at a time, and putting together teams and putting together processes where I could not, if I wanted to, go and pick up the rent checks or go to Home Depot or do all these things in the middle because I was 1,000 miles away from the project. And that was that moment where it came together. And I said, okay, I get this process, but this isn't scalable. Having 50 duplexes all around the country, all around the market, just seemed like uncontrolled chaos. So came on a podcast, and the podcast, someone was talking about buying apartment buildings. And that was that moment that we dove all in on buying apartment communities. And that was in 2015, 2016. We brought our first apartment complex in 2017. And fast forward today, we're actually a little over 3,000 units now, a little over 300 million of real estate we've acquired mainly down here in the Southeast.
Wow. That's an incredible story, actually. Well, thanks. You very eloquently laid that out, very well articulated. 4 or 5 things come to mind. First of all, I am sorry for the losses you endured early on. It sounds like holistically here, there's room for a Netflix documentary and at least 1 book, if not 2, that you could write in there. The bartending.
What stands out to me today is honestly the point of I'm coming to age where now I'm starting to have kids that are not at that age yet, but they're coming to those ages. And so it's just like the thought of the parents at the time. It's just very interesting.
Oh yeah. Yeah. But that's the blessing and curse of children. And now I have grandchildren. It's a constant worry for the rest of your life. And I guess that's part of what comes with that too. Just wishing all the best for them. It's like coaching your kids over the years, and we'll get to coaching and different things when they're at athletic events. And so the higher they go in some type of competition, the more stress as a parent you feel with you feel their successes and failures a lot more than them. And it's like, you think back about yourself and what your parents had to go through and things you endured. It is interesting as we grow older and get perspective. But I will say the bartending obviously give you a good perspective. Lots of skills there that you develop by being a bartender. Moving out to Jersey, great thing I have to say. My wife is originally from Secaucus, so got family in the Secaucus area, and I'm familiar with a lot of the popping the tops on the homes in a lot of these Jersey towns where you have the 70s style stuff. So I could think you'd have to lift some homes with that, because you see it over the last 30 years. I've seen it in New Jersey over and over. I know that's a strategy for some guys, right? Whether you see these,
it is. I have a friend that does that. That's his full strategy. Yep.
The scalability and syndication is exactly why I'm here. I didn't make this move until age 48, even though in my mid to late 20s, Rich Dad Poor Dad came out, and I was kind of excited to do that, but my life took me in a different path. But the syndication side and sort of that scalability is what I realized as an older guy, hey, I don't have time to be doing this. My wife and I are like, oh, we'll acquire this 4 unit or we'll rehab this. And no, I'm not going to get there from here if I just do that. I'm not in my early 20s starting this out where I grow a portfolio. So it is interesting to see, like you said, whole wide world of real estate. And it's, on one hand, it's accessible to everyone. And it's a no-brainer. On one hand, that you can get involved. On the other hand, there's so much to learn in it that you don't know. You say, oh, I'm in real estate development, and all kinds of things come to people's mind depending on their experience, right? They might be, oh, go get a license or go, do this. So, or they're thinking of HGTV. So that journey that brought you to multifamily is interesting, and the adversity that you had to overcome to be where you're at and to build upon is an incredible story. So thank you for sharing that up front. Now I want to ask you, I want to circle back to the 432 AM specifically, because I don't have a lot of experience. I was in the military for 6 years and ROTC before that. And I'm not by nature a really disciplined guy, same time every day. I've just never been able to do. I've really tried to build my life around having flexibility within an hour or two for how I start and how I end, which hasn't really always been great for my wife. She's like, hey, when are you coming to dinner or whatever? But my youngest son was a football player at University of Oregon, and it was right the year after Chip Kelly left there. And they had in their day, the way it was structured, there were all these things show up at this meeting at 6:04, and everything was off, not an even time. So there must be some strategy behind that. I want to pick your brain real quick on if there is something specific or if that's just random.
It brings part of your brain back in. It's like brushing your teeth. If you're right-handed, like tomorrow, try to brush your teeth with your left-handed, right? It will make you like your mind open up to things. And what I found is that, when I was on the precipice of having kids, like I had to get back control of my life. Because, most of the time, like you wake up and like, it's not like if you're tired and the kids are there, it's like, oh, hey, why don't you just go take care of yourself? I'll figure it out, right? Like I'm going to sleep for a little bit longer, right? So I had to find a way to get back control of my day. And that really happened with me starting to get up early. However, if you put 5:30 or you put 6 o'clock or you put 4:30, then, you hit the snooze button, 4:35, doesn't matter. It kind of just always happens. But you hit the snooze button, you never really feel like it doesn't do anything. Like, oh, we slept 5 more minutes. It's not like that magically helps. You just hit the snooze button and got 5 more minutes less, and now you get up into more chaos. So I put in 4:32, 4, 3, 2, 1, go, and just get up out of bed. Now, I'm perfect in many days, but not all days. But in the most days when I do this, some days I need more sleep, is that I do this, get up out of bed, have a glass of water, go meditate and go work out. And it's just a very quick way to just set the stage for my day, to just basically say, okay, I'm now at my starting line, go. Because usually, most we wake up late, then we're rushed, then everything becomes a fire or chaos or something outside of our control. And then when things happen in the day that weren't expected, it becomes even more of a chaotic approach because you don't have the base to go out there and deal with them. Right. So I found that, when I do this, I can set the stage for my day. So, when things unravel throughout the day, I can be focused on that and not feel, tired or groggy or mad I didn't get my workout in, or just because I was short my kids or I was stuck in traffic or all these other things that can pile on you because you didn't really prepare yourself for the day.
Yeah. Excellent. Excellent strategy. Excellent lesson in there. And it dovetails with Admiral, a few books I've read by this Admiral. I can't think of his name at the time, but you've probably heard of Make Your Bed.
Oh, sure.
And that's his book, and then, he said, if you do that first thing every day, you'll at least have accomplished that one thing. So, we all struggle with time management and different methods to do it. Mine is definitely to try to make sure at least you go straight to the workout and do something active, like the Arnold Schwarzenegger, like, let's get active right away. Do your workout at least. Then, you've got that.
I agree. You almost, everybody's like, oh, it's hard to get, well, like you can get like 15 minutes in and like get like a really like tremendous set for your day. Most people are like, oh, I got to go, like 3 hours at the gym. Like, no, you can go work out for like, 25 minutes, 20 minutes, 15 minutes, 45 minutes. It's all you need. Just go do something. And then you feel better because you have just a blood flowing in you. I find that if there's a day, very rarely, but if a day that I won't work out, like everything's thrown off because you just like, you've created a rhythm. Right. But we have that same rhythm in good and bad stuff, too. So some people have a rhythm that they're in, like, oh, I get up and the first thing I do is like, smoke a cigarette. Right. The first thing I do is, look at social media for an hour and a half. Like you get in those bad rhythms and that becomes your rhythm. So like I had to make a point to like pivot things that weren't really, fruitful for where I wanted to go, and then replace them with other things that, to get up at a specified time, just set the stage, because we have to think about so many things in a day, right? We're thinking about 60, 80,000 thoughts in a day that are, and, most of them are repeated. So if I can just take some of these off my plate, like, what do I do now? Then it allows me to actually put like my thought into like real focus of where I want to go.
Excellent. Excellent. Great lesson for anybody listening. And for me, myself, keep trying to make sure I go to bed on time. I want to always stay in sync with my wife after 32 years. So that becomes a challenge. Both spouses have to be sort of in sync if that's important to them. And one person likes to stay up later, it becomes a challenge. But well, thanks for sharing all that, Jason. And I'll say that in thinking about your now over 3,000 units, I reached out to you as part of reaching out to many people in the same category, I'll say, as you, who we run in the Froggy X Factor is 1/3 of our business, where we're doing consulting stuff. And then I had the privilege to speak with your brother, who you work with, on the phone about your business a little bit. And I said, all right, these guys aren't a candidate for my service. They're like high speed, low drag. They got their systems down. They have their act together. It's interesting. And I'll give a shout out to New Jersey. I was raised, even though I was originally from Cleveland, Ohio, I was raised in the South, in South Florida. And then when I met my wife, and we were both in our 20s, say early 90s, I went to New Jersey for the first time, and I got to know Jersey food, but I also got to know Jersey work ethic. And I said, whoa, these people hustle. So the way my wife views stuff, even like we're in New Hampshire, we have a different view, different pace that people move or whatever. Jersey people, I mean, obviously the best food's from around there, but the pace of work and the work ethic. So a guy rolling in like me, who's used to finding efficiency for businesses, not going to find a lot of efficiency to add to your business. So I want to pick your brain and get a little bit more about your system operations. You go to your website, things pop in at the right moment. If you go to your investor portal, you've got it all laid out really well. I want to find out, one, what kind of systems do you guys rely on? How do you view technology and your processes? And then two, how do you see the future evolving, and what's your take on that in terms of how you might restructure certain things in the future? What do you think is going to take off technology? It's a technology focused question.
I think we're all fearful like robots are going to take over, but like they're going to be useful because ideally it can help replace some stuff. Because if the goal for us is not to work 100 hours a week, the goal is to live a fruitful life. Like we see like what people do in Europe, and they take time and they have more. Like some of us are just wired to like do it all the time, but at certain points like you want to have time to basically go and explore, go be with family. Like why are you doing all this, right? So you can use technology to your favor as long as it's not just that you have 100 technologies, you don't know how you're using them. So we try to keep it, I would assume, simplified, right? So we run our projects through Asana. We do a lot, basically everything through Google Drive, all accessible through that. We have our investor portal that all the investors go into, all the communication through that runs through the investor portal, through podcasts. Of course, we're using Riverside here. So we try to keep it formatted for basically software that's meant for the purpose, right? So the projects with Asana, that runs pretty rapidly through there. So everything can track through what's going through. The Drive keeps us all systemized. We have the same format for each project, whether it be on something that we're either on the acquisition side to the part of actually in the repositioning phase to the part of a closed file, right? Each file has the same format. And what it does is it was a work in progress, and then also what were other people doing and what did we like and what could we implement? And then you keep refining it. And then as you bring team members on, you see where they fit. And, and that goes from just our operations side. We manage probably maybe 500 units here out at the office. And so then we have the leasing side, and that's where some of the automation will come back. So it's to have some of these parts that can be proactive, so you can everything from, setting in answering service for off-call hours to just having automatic responses for tenants, right? For even setting up, visual tours to the point to even having tours that are just, we can meet them or even lockbox tours, right? 3D tours. Those all set the stage, just make it easier because it doesn't put us where there's some human element that needs to happen for the next step to go, right? And so as we look at this process, the more it can be automated, you do have to, for me, it's part that you still have to have a human touch in there. You think anything you call today, it's like you call American Airlines or you call, United Healthcare, you call anything like it's like anything. It's 19 stages to get to a human person. And it's the most annoying thing you can do. So we don't want to do that on our part when we're dealing with investors or we're dealing with tenants, right? We want to have some stage of that human element because it is still a person's living or a person's investment with us. However, there will be some stage where we can at least offer things to help enlighten investors, right? Before they get to a call with us, so they can be enlightened what they're doing, right? Or they can have more of the information available to them. So when they come, they can get the most out of a call with us, right? So they're not coming just blind, like I don't know what to ask. Hopefully with some of the resources we share, or some of the other things now that they can go through the steps to have this information available so they can read up, so they can see that hopefully this would be beneficial for them. Or if it's not, that's great too, but something that maybe they can take away that in the future it could be potentially good for them to invest.
Great. A few good takeaways in there. One thing that caught my attention was, so you guys are self-managing 500, and then you have another 2,500 plus elsewhere. Sort of how do you divide that up? Do the other ones all have separate property management elements? Is there any kind of standardization between the two, or is there a third party that's overseeing disparate locations? How do you?
So we have in each market a select property manager. Even here in Middle Tennessee, for the larger assets, we have a property manager. In-house, we manage all of the mid-tier properties or all of the unique properties. So the storage units, commercial properties, the motel, and anything that's in that mix of like 40, 50 units, we manage here because we're better set up to manage that. Because with those levels, the property management groups, we do not find great property management groups. If I just have I have 48 units in Little Rock. a property management group would not serve that well because they need too much economies of scale or too many other units here, and it's not really set up for an on-site person as well as we would. So we found we were managing to manage more in those assets. But here in Middle Tennessee, we manage a 44 unit here in my town, but basically every other property is 100 units, 100 units, 100 units. We have 1,000 units here in town is managed by another property manager who's better set up to do that than we would. So we don't manage the larger properties. We manage all of the mid-tier properties or smaller properties.
Okay. And you only manage your property. You don't manage other people's.
Yeah, we do not do for others. And
you're so tightly coupled and vertically integrated that I think I know the answer to the next question, but all your units, are you JV'd on any of these? Are you with other partners? Do you have various partners?
I have
100% you?
No, so syndication, about 80% of them. And then on that part, the other 20% are a mix of just us or us and a partner.
Okay, good. I'm a little selfishly asking that too, because you mentioned Little Rock only because I'm looking at selfishly using my podcast to get information. I'm considering something in both Arkansas and Oklahoma, where guys come to me with some of these off market opportunities. Now I've mostly been doing ground up development for the last 5 years.
Nice.
But my first thing that comes to mind is one, because I've learned on Colorado, Michigan, I've learned that we only want to be in charge of development as a primary sponsor if I can drive to the place today and I can oversee it and I can talk to the subs. Remote management of that is not happening with me, but we're still doing deals where if somebody on the ground, you have a solid property manager or a solid sponsor in charge with the contractors, the subs and the project. Yeah. So that's a little bit why I asked that, because I'm thinking, okay, well, we might do some deals out there, and then I'll know you know a property manager in Arkansas. So that's the kind of connections I look for, right? People I trust. I basically have turned this. This is my year. I'd say 2024. There's a lot of negativity happening with inflation rates and slow down. A lot of commercial loans coming due. We felt it on a Colorado project, $29 million loan due. A lot of the bridge loans. People are in trouble in a lot of places. A lot of people aren't if they built enough contingency. But I'm saying 2024 is my year to just step back and focus on relationships and making sure that across the board, at every level, whoever we're dealing with, A, knows what the hell they're doing. B, which is hard. Competency is at a premium these days to find people who know what they're doing. And then B, equally important, have some level of integrity, people that are going to be honest with you and transparent. And then I just figure if we just keep that as a focus every day, we'll probably be golden in the long run, even if some other people come with, better deals, say, for instance. So
resourcefulness is key, right? And so the more you can know, because it's not always and especially for starting with real estate, I remember starting and you wanted to have all the answers, but you never have all the answers. But what you need to know is okay, I'm not going to have all the answers. I need to take a step, but who can I surround myself with to have the resources? So when I come up and potentially there's a question, I don't know what the question is going to be, but when that question shows up, who can I have, in my Rolodex, we'll call it, right? Who can I have around me that I can go, let me call Jim, Jim, got a question for you, on development, and you will give me that next step. And I'm oh, sweet. Now it shortcuts the learning curve of me going to try to find it on Google or just trying to guess. Right. And so it shortcuts that me and puts me in a better, safer environment to continue to push forward. Yeah.
Great point. And the Rolodex. I love to hear the word Rolodex. This second or third podcast in a row where someone's mentioned Rolodex. And I feel a little comfort, a little warm, fuzzy feeling hey, my Rolodex is still king, right? I can still, and it's not just my AI assistant and all this other stuff. People do, there's some segment of the population much younger than me that just jumps on every technology as soon as it comes out. And as a former systems engineer, I even get nervous with it because I'm it's hard to keep up with all this stuff. So my comfort zone, even as a technology guy, is to go back to the Rolodex and who can I talk to that knows something about this. So since I mentioned the negativity of 2024 and you've persevered over a lot, both personally and professionally. The next question I like to ask guests is about a warning, a good takeaway, some hard lesson you learned or bad deal or something that really stands out to you that you learned from, you adjusted, and you try never to make that mistake again.
I mean, sometimes, like, I'll give you an example. My second deal, we did all the due diligence, did all the preparation, did everything right, and it had a lift station because the roads were rebuilt, and so the sewer line and the new roads were higher than where the property line sewer line was. So there was a lift station on the property for the sewer line. Well, lo and behold, we're in for this for 2 months, and this lift station that was inspected and everything else literally went out in the property. And it was made overseas, right? It wasn't readily available. And they were like, oh, the water down was down to like all 48 units. And they were like, oh, it's going to take 3 months to get this part. I was like, well, that's not a viable option here. So within a matter of 24 hours, luckily we had a great property manager, and they had the resources to go find a local company, and that local company could come fabricate a rig to be able to put a new lift station in. We were able to get it back online in, less than a day and a half. So, like, you have that moment here where it's like, wow, okay, we're about to have 48 tenants needing to get displaced here for the matter of fact of 3 months. So what do we do here? 2, it got fixed in 2 days, right? So that's where resourcefulness comes in. So, like, it's not always that not to do it then, but, like, again, like, it gets down to it, like, things, you're buying buildings with, I don't know, dozens, hundreds people in them. Things are not going to go perfect. So when they do not go perfect, right? What can you do at that moment to be proactive to help find a solution, right? Because we're making money, not on getting problems, but finding solutions to the problems.
Yeah. All right. Good answer. You probably learned a lot working with your father in the post Hurricane Sandy era with that as well, like on the ground side.
Yeah, I did all like the sales, and my dad and my brother did the work. So you'd see everything. Like, I would just meet all kinds of people in all kinds of places, some that like needed to because now they're in the flood zone, to others that, where their house was destroyed. Right. And so you would see all different parts of walk from just people in all different states, and, you try to help them, but also now going through a process to try and educate them on something that they have no understanding of. And each time having to do it exactly like it's starting on day one, right? Because no one lifts their home twice. It's not like I'm going to raise my home higher and then I'm going to raise my home higher again. Like, it never happens, right? So this is the first time everybody's experiencing it, even if they've seen it around town, but most hadn't. So it was a lot of education up front about, like, here is how this happens. Here's what's going to happen. Here's the process of the work and flow, right? And just to get them prepared, just to understand it, right? Because if someone coming in told now they've just had everything taken away from them, their house is flooded, right? They now are hopefully getting money from FEMA to do this project, and now they have to have this very intrinsic project where a week ago they were just living in their home, going down to Starbucks or whatever, and now here they are, displaced, and now they have to do this massive year-long construction project out of nowhere.
Yeah, it must be. It must have been stressful for a lot of them. I could see the stress with me. I've listened to a few guys talk about lifting homes on our lakes up here in the Lakes region of New Hampshire, like a lot of old foundation, old homes, and guys crawling underneath the spaces, talking to me. They just came out of something, and I'm always like, oh man, I wouldn't want to do that. It sounds intrinsic, but interesting at the same time. So now I want to ask you about something that's worked out really good. Obviously, you've had several projects go really well, but if you can either share a strategy or a specific project that you would say, like, we were out of our mind about it. It went so well, and we're very happy with how everything clicked on it, or it could have been a creative strategy used.
We've had, a number have gone well, but like, I'll just say, like, to get to a formatted plan, it's basically as simple as, like, we go into a place that's not really performing well, whether it's on the property's not, in good shape, or it's just not being run well, right? Usually both. And we make it a better place to live, which makes tenant happier, which makes them pretty much pay more rent because they're happier, right? Which creates more revenue for the property, which creates a bigger bottom line, which creates better returns for our investors. So we simply do that, which we'll go in there and we'll change the face, whether we'll put on new marketing, we'll paint the buildings or do something exterior or do landscaping, just the finish on the outside, because you have to have a nice outside, even if the units are the best thing in front. If it's a bad experience when you show up, that usually taints the tenant's mind by the time they're even getting to these fantastic units. So, we had a project here in town. We brought it for $8.9 million. We actually got the owner to be the lender. So the owner held the note because he had built it in 1965, and he held the note. So he held the note because he had very low basis on it, and for $6.1 million. We had a fixed term on it. So 8.9. We did 91 of the 93 units we renovated in the course of the year. When we took it over, the guy had basically no debt on it, so he didn't care really the cash flow. So he was charging like $570 of rent, and I think he was paying for the internet at the time. He was doing a lot of things that you just didn't match the market. So we just made it uniform to the market. Started renovating units. We actually had to go and pretty much replace all the tenant base because the tenants, if you had a heartbeat and had just killed someone yesterday, you were fine. Just come on in, right? He would take anybody. So we basically had to take the building, because we were the bad building in the block, transform the entire tenant base, and really our effective rents today are $1,100 to I think $1,179, and the property appraised at $16.5 million about a year ago. Oh wow! So big transformation on that property.
And you're holding it. Is your strategy to hold overall? You're like really
no, not all of them. This one was a unique one that was set up for this. So let's say about 80% of them are set on a syndication where there's a term to them, and the other 20% have some longevity to them.
Okay, wow, that's a great story and a great margin. Yeah, we had one that I was co-GP on out in Mesa, Arizona, of a similar size, not quite as much of a margin, but it was still 35-40% return in like 2 years from flipping that over, from doing a similar process. We only used like $1 million to $1.5 million in renovations. On that note of a great deal like that, in mentioning the tenant base, I have a buddy here in New Hampshire who's built a lot of units, not as many units as you have, because we're more scattered and small than say what you could get if you're trying to focus just in your geographic area. But he's had some negative press recently he's had to deal with, and it really goes something like this, that somebody in that tenant base that was used to getting $500 rent because they're just living in a crap hole and nobody's doing anything, gets very angry because someone has come in and cleaned up and then raised the rent, and then they get a voice, because everybody gets a voice nowadays with press and everything. So there was just this long article written. So I was joking about it, sending him like little images of people that were like protesting against him, and he's like, I just want to make that go away. Have you had to deal with that, or what's your perspective on dealing with this? Because it's just like it seems like a hard thing to deal with. Like, it
gets back like, if you're making it a better place to live, like if I just came in there and like didn't do anything, and I just raised the rents $400 or $500, then that's one thing. But if I'm actively trying to make it a better, which I'm sure that guy is too, right? A better place, okay. You can say what you want here, but the building is not improved. Now we're trying to fix things and make it a better place to live. And that's simply the message. You can't flower it more than that. Like it is as is. And if you're not happy, then move somewhere else. I'm sure there's another place out there that is, but usually they can't move anywhere else because this was the place that was really bad. And we're just making it not bad like the other ones, right? We're making it a better place.
Yeah. Certain arguments certain logic, you can't make everybody happy. And I guess that's probably the bottom line with that message. And there are a segment of people, because I've run across it in my inbox over and over, because I get deals all the time, Liz, I'm sure you do, day after day. Most of them don't pencil out. But a few years back when we were considering more value add, I would have these very cosmetic, like, hey, all we got to do is this, and these are below market rents, and we're going to immediately jack it up. And I think that is probably where people get a little pissed off, right? Like,
well, it doesn't always work too. I remember like the brokers forever were like, all you have to do is just put in a dog park and you can just raise the rents $300. And they'd be like, what is this? What is this? But you would see it like over and over, just add a dog park. And they'd be like, what is going on?
Nonsense.
That is not a business plan, guys.
Yeah. So my final question in the area, Jason, that I hope you just shed some light on in terms of your perspective and experience, is regarding financing. It sounds like that last really good deal, you had an owner take back a lot in the form of a note, which seems to be working great. Like there's an uptick in that given what's happening right now, the inflation, people with notes ballooning, bridge loans coming due. What are you doing to deal with sort of the financing landscape, and did you get caught with any bridge loans like we did on a project in Colorado? Now, ground up construction is more risky, but
Yeah.
we got caught with one of these bridge loans.
What was
You
the
know,
result? What'd you have to do?
having to retrade for a very expensive other loan
Yeah.
is our
Got it.
situation.
Yeah. Yeah, we
So
had two fixed ones, and we had one that was and they were both like $8 and $7 million that were refinancing with banks. We're refinanced with banks, and I've been trying to move things to banks right now. I have a couple of agency loans, but the bank loans, they're not like the best rate, and they're not the best term, but they have flexibility. And so, if you believe that the rates are going to settle down and rotate in your favor, then I like the banks, because if I get, like, say I'm at prime right now, it's not great, it's 8.5, but in that front, if it's a 5-year fix, 2 years interest only, and it's got a 1% prepay, then it's going to rotate with prime, right? This loan has no upside exposure, but I'm able to loan mod down if prime goes down. And if the rates really decrease, I can go exit and go into an agency loan or sell without much implication on the back end. So I have a couple agency ones, but like those, you have to be locked in. It's like 4, 5, 6 years. Like I got to be locked in with this loan because I have yield maintenance, right? And so like if rates sink to the floor, and I'm like, oh, let me try and sell this thing right now, it could be hundreds of $1,000s, $1 million of a prepayment penalty to try and exit out of a loan, which of course caps your upside.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we're in a little different category with the construction side, but we were like going from 9 to 11%. Like guys were trading us like, okay, yeah, we can get this deal done. Where we were at 9 or 10 with a plan to go down to 7 or 8. And now people are telling us 11 or 12, right? We'll give you another bridge loan for 29 million or 32 million, but you got to go up 2 ticks. And that makes a huge difference. There's a couple percentage points when you're talking about that size and you're trying to head to go vertical. I'm wondering what, something you said brought to mind something I wanted to ask you. Oh, related to cap rates. So don't do a lot of value add, but, and like I said, I've only been doing this 5 years full time. I was like listening to podcasts for years and, wringing my hands. I'm like already at the top of my own industry, but like wanting to go over into real estate. Then finally I made a lateral move at age 48. And my mentor is a guy, he's a CEO of Permanis out of Michigan, and really taught me the most on underwriting, more than the books that I had before that. But my general thesis is try to come in 150 to 200 basis points below where I can exit on whatever, right? Go to sources and uses, see what the total cost is, see what a real NOI is, make sure expenses are good. It's pretty simple. In 10 minutes to back a napkin, where are we at here? I get tons of value add guys, and a lot of them are pretty successful what they do. Now it's changing a little bit, but say they would be in Dallas, Fort Worth area, they were still buying at pretty low cap rates. So when I see stuff like I got something yesterday, this guy says he can buy this. It was in Arkansas. It was 6.5 cap rate, already approved 7.5% interest loan. And then I go down the line and I just say it doesn't make sense. So in my macro level, I'm looking to buy things at an 8 cap minimum. Like if I can buy it at an 8 cap now, how do you analyze and underwrite deals in context of this financing challenge right now?
You do have to look at the market, right? But on that front, the easiest way is that if you're looking at your existing cap today, you're going to put 10 basis points onto your future cap, right? It doesn't go where you're going to buy, but you're going to look at the market cap to where the future is. Because if you were doing that for years, cap rates were going in inverse, right? So you were actually, putting yourself in a better position because you were anticipating exiting, right, at a higher cap, and then ultimately exiting at a lower cap. But you're right, where rates are today, with that model, 2 cap rates, it's hard for us to go out there and just picture that, I'm gonna buy at a 5 cap with a 7% loan, and it's gonna make sense, right? Especially right now with where rates. Because if I look here, even at prime, right, you talk about being an 8% cap. Well, if I look at that model and I say, okay, well, let me look at where prime has been historically, and prime has ranged about 6.25 to 6.5%, right? So on historical average, that's been prime. So if I look at that rate, and that's my assumption of where I can be, buying an 8 cap gives me a spread that my thesis is that rates are going to moderate back to that point, and I can get to that potential to have that. Or if treasuries stay the same, I can go agency, and hopefully, we just did 2 agency loans. One's at 5.65%, and one was at 5.89%. So if treasuries stay consistent, and the bond market doesn't blow up anymore, right?
Mhm.
I can be at a loan too that would be in some better position than, of course, where prime would be. So I would set the stage to really look at that perspective. What is my future view on where I want to go?
Okay, great. Then I'm not too far off the mark when I think of these value adds. I'm like, yeah, I'm not crazy. I like to talk to somebody that's successful at it. Say, I'm not crazy, am I? Like, guys are still buying things at 6
Well, some
cap
of these
in the
markets
market.
became 6 cap markets when they really are never 6 cap markets. They were 6 cap markets for a moment in time, but they're really an 8 cap market, right?
Exactly.
And that's some of these secondary markets, like the Miamis, the New Yorks, right? Like some of these are just always going to be low cap markets, right? But then if you're, in, let's say you're in Little Rock, but then now you're like an hour outside of Little Rock, and like it's a 6 cap. Like, well, it's a 6 cap for a reason, because there's 30,000 people in town. Like it's not really a 6 cap, it's a 10 cap, but a 6 cap looks good because you've been buying at 4 and 3 caps for years.
Are your units all in secondary and tertiary markets, or do you have some urban, like big city stuff?
Yeah. So like I have Nashville, I have Atlanta.
Okay.
So we're in the suburbs around there, so I'm in Cleveland. So I'm in surrounding markets, right? So they're usually second tier markets.
Okay, good. Nashville. Are you pretty close to Nashville?
I'm 25 minutes from Nashville. So we have properties there all the way down to here where I'm in Murfreesboro.
Okay, great. Yeah, we've done a lot of projects. When I say me with ProManus, downtown condo deals in Nashville.
Oh, nice.
To the point where at some point John was like, okay, I don't know, we competing with ourselves here.
Yeah.
ProManus and CA South, but like luxury condos more.
Got it. Yep.
But it's hard to understand something you understand better than me, just like right outside of Nashville. It's a little more tricky when you get to the submarkets just outside of Nashville in terms of how you're viewing comps relative to downtown Nashville.
Yeah, they're not. Right. It's not comps, because you're in each little submarket. Yeah, so you got to be in the submarkets from there.
Different world. Have you had any luck with assumable debt? Sometimes I see these coming in with like assumable debt. Have you done any one of those deals?
Yeah, we did a 32 unit here in town that the rate was 3.93, and the guy had to sell for another project, so we basically brought it at par. It's 75% loan to value on a 3.93% loan. So with 7 years left on it. So it was
7 years left. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
What would you say would be the minimum you would look for in terms of years on an assumable? Like if you saw something that was like 1 year, you'd be like, that's
no, that doesn't make sense. Cause it just is like, if it was 1 year and the market was coming down, then maybe you could look at it, but really like 3 years is probably the runway.
Okay, great. Well, hey, it's been great talking to you, Jason.
Same here.
Since 4:32, as I know, I don't want to keep you any longer. I appreciate you spending time with me, getting to know you a little bit, because I haven't known you before this interview, and I look forward to connecting with you down the road here, and maybe doing something together. But I appreciate what you've given us today. Yeah. So Jason, tell our listeners and viewers what's the best way to get in touch with you guys and do some business.
Absolutely. So you can find me at Yarusi Holdings, YARUSI Holdings.com, or listen to our podcast. We have the Multifamily Live Podcast and the Live 100 Podcast.
Excellent. And I will be looking out for those podcasts. And I don't do a lot of multifamily, so I won't be a good guest for that one, but maybe I'll be on one of your podcasts someday as well. I appreciate it, Jason. Thanks a lot and have a good day. Hey, thanks for having me on. If anybody else wants to find out more about what we're doing, please come to froggycompanies.com. Check out our 3 different business areas. It's great talking to you, and see you next time.